Well, this is part 3 in a series where we are working with one of our GCAD Plus designers and working through how you might set up a template, and you'd use that template for future jobs. So we're just getting the template organised, and we're using a design, a crude design over here on the left to test out the symbols that we're going to use commonly. We're going to leave all of this area to the right where we have a series of symbols which have been attached to entries in the plant database file. So if we click in on this symbol for a crepe myrtle, it's already labelled. If we come over here, as the botanical name and the common name, and indeed a code, and all of that information will be used when we generate a plant schedule that will accompany this particular design. But this is the zone that we really want to work hard on, make sure it all works nicely, that the symbols are organised and labelled the way we want, because a lot of the smarts in GCAD Plus relies on that being done carefully. Plant schedules and smart label tool here has been used to label that pyrus and the kangaroo paws in this area, mass planting and so on. But you need to think also about other aspects of a design. Someone has to create this design and build it to your specifications. I think it's a good idea quite early on to set a dimension style, which we've done here, dim underscore leader at 1 to 100. So we've got a named and unique and a dimension style that's unique to this particular design consultancy. And notice that it's on its own layer, L dash. If we happen to go to the layer stack at the moment, it's a little bit of a mess, but we try and put all layers that we use in landscape work, we try and be consistent. L dash plant construction, L plant graphic, L plant symbol. Here's a couple of others where the naming terminology is a little different, and you can just jump in there and simply rename. So you could attempt to rename, and I think that this will fail, and I think I'll need to use a different name, plant construction 2, but they now start jumping up. The smart label tool, to help distinguish from some of these others, is a mixture of upper and lower case, but most of the others are uppercase. So let's accept now that the dim layer has been created and it's current. So whatever dimension we put on here now can be moved easily to that layer. If we wanted to dimension this line in here, we would come over to the layer here and set it for L dim, then come up here and we'll do a linear dimension from that intersection there. That's not picking up an intersection. If I come here, let's clear all. We should have an intersection here between that line. No, we don't. That's the dimension line. So we pop it up here, and it works off the end there. So we want a dimension from this end to there. So if we now set our dimension style, go to dimension styles, and we've just worked out that dim leader 100 works reasonably well. We've set it current, and now we can apply our dimensions. So we go from that endpoint there to that endpoint probably over here, and Well, you may have noticed that the arrowhead or marker at the end of the dimensions too small to be seen. That was fixed by clicking here, going to dimension style, and under geometry, we're interested in the arrow size and leader size. We've set it at 200. It was actually set at 1. So if I OK that, so in a long-winded way, what we've just done is within this template now, from now on, we can rely on there being a layer called L-dim, and we have some dimension styles that are going to work well with our smart plant label tool, and we have the dimension style itself will work nicely. Now we can simply, if we need to, and you probably would, you would only put those dimensions there for the construction team. We simply come in here, go back to layer 0 current and turn off the dimension layer, and we're back into designing and testing our symbols out in the layout here. So we've moved along a little in our drawing template. Well, in no particular order of importance, I'd be inclined now to bring in a scale bar and a north point, and I'd keep those in model space so that when we go to a layer, let's call that layout concept design, there our scale bar and our north point are in that space. You might argue that that north point is a little too large. Let's reduce its size and put its scale to 0.25. We're not changing the distance, we're just changing its size by this technique. But the north point sits in model space and we can grab it. I'd always want to test that this works. We've got a handle so we can look at our site records and spin that north indicator. So it's always going to be there in the full size model of the site. Similarly, let's just quickly test it. We'll measure the distance from, say, this endpoint here, and to this one we should get 5,000 units. And that's interesting. We get 4927. Oops. Maybe we miscued on the first. Let's try that again. Always zoom in a bit to give yourself the best chance of seeing. And come here. We're picking up that endpoint and this endpoint. There we are, 5,000 exactly. So I'm now reassured I've got an internal scale, an internal north point. Now when I go to a concept design, I've got a block set over here. In contrast to all of the other blocks, which has got a grip at the center of them, this one here, center of a group, and so on, they're all centered. If we come over here, the vertical drawing title block, where we put information on the client name, scales, and so on, has a base point anchored down here. The reason for that is that when we insert our title blocks, we simply put them in at a position, X position of 0 and a Y position of 0, and then the block will orient itself nicely on the sheet. Similarly, if this particular block, I think we called it title vertical, not tile vertical, and in a layout space here we have another block called tile horizontal, and there's the base point there. So in the full size model, we're aiming to have all the symbols and our dimensioning working correctly, all sorts of things tested out thoroughly as we work with the drawing. So I think that's enough for the moment. Hopefully we'll be able to make it a fourth movie in this series shortly. Well, the eagle eye among you might have noticed we had a couple of the Lilo lounges sitting in that area there near the pool, and they've disappeared. Why have they disappeared? Well, they in fact were on the dim layer. Now magically they reappear, but clearly I had left that layer active, and it's easy to put them back on layer 0. So my advice is work on layer 0 as much as you can. Just switch to one of those named layers when you need it. If you work on too many layers, it gets so confusing trying to remember which layer you happen to be on. So now when we go to our layer tools, turn off the dimension layer, these stay there. And there's our concept design, and we're gradually fleshing things out. So we're testing things nicely. If we wanted to have those Lilo steamer chairs, if you want, and you want those in the group that you might use, just copy it from here and pop it up in your group. We're working on building this lot up, so we might have a furniture layer where we can bring this in very easily. So they work well now, and the spare is over here. So of course what we're aiming to do is remove all of the design we've done here, and that would be a case for, I think, moving a copy or copying those two. Copy those from here and then pop them in that group there, if you like. Now we can blow the whole lot away and get a new job working with everything that we need sitting here. We've got some movies that clearly show how you can work with, say, irrigation symbols and things, and we can pop all those on the right-hand side. So the more you load this template up with appropriate symbols that are tested and work well, the easier your future work will become.